heard about and maybe even participated in bird watching.
Great Scott, Frisbee! It's a three-toed Greco! Frisbee! Frisbee! Where are you? Oh.
And you have undoubtedly participated in this ancient and honorable pastime. Girl watching, duly noting and classifying the most common types, such as the broad-beamed beach bomb, seen here, or the narrow-waisted sweater steno, whose natural habitat is an office in which very little is accomplished. But now, through scientific advances and diligent research, coupled with the most modern technical equipment, we are able to bring you the latest results of salesman watching, the newest sport of all. This week only, focusing on salesmen who are presenting for profit. Of the many types of salesmen spotted by the Salesman Watching Society while presenting the product, 3 stand out as most unsuccessful. The first is the hard-headed product knocker. His favorite phrase with a customer is,
Well, actually, I wouldn't pay too much attention to this wild talk you hear about new features if I were you. With the deal I'm going to give you, friend, features won't matter.
Then there is this type, the snub-nosed slide rule pusher. He's a technical man from the word go and won't let anyone ever forget it. Listen.
Then the thermal efficiency of this Framus is 0.95.
I'll take it.
Which is BTU chart, rated on the electroencephalograph at 260729.
I'd like to take it, but I guess I'll just take a walk.
Lastly, the penny-pinching price pitcher. He thinks every customer is a price shopper and out to steal the car from him. His patter goes something like this.
Yes, sir. This car is priced right. I'll give you the best deal in town.
Well, what's this I hear about your new air suspension and new engine change or something?
How much can you put down?
Well, first tell me more about these new things on the car.
What do you want? 24 or 30 months on the balance?
Yes, these are some of the types turned up by our survey. And each of these salesmen is a grand a month boy.
Yes, they lose $1,000 a month in sales. But here's another survey. And it includes the latest ideas from some of the real successful salesmen, brought to you by tape recorder right from the field. But before we get into their answers, let's see what many of you say the problems are in presenting the product. Problems reflected in questions like these.
Say, does presenting the product really pay off?
Well, what's the best way to do it?
How do you handle a price buyer?
How does competition do it?
How do you handle cross-selling?
Say, how do you get from presentation to demonstration? Well, let's take them one at a time. Does presenting the product really pay off? Here's what one successful sales manager in a large East Coast city has to say.
We'll often write a deal $200 less allowance than a deal some of our competitors have offered. And I believe that if the salesman just stands there and doesn't bring up anything about the superior lines and the styling that we have in the new Ford, well, then he wouldn't get that $200.
How do they feel on the West Coast?
I feel that you've got to create a feeling there that they really want Ford. That it's a better car and it's superior in the lines and performance and so forth. And when you do, damn it, well, it's easier to sell and with a better profit.
From a sales manager in Kansas City, Kansas.
When we started taking command of the deal, from the time the people walked in the door, leading them right through a presentation and sale, we were able to build more gross into the deals and get sales that resulted in more profit.
A sales manager in a large metropolitan area.
The people who spend a little more time on the deal and go into the thing in detail, work harder in presenting the product in this demonstration ride and so forth, they come up with a better profit. Later in the year, some of the salesmen feel that the Ford's been out a long time and you just don't have to go into that. But salesmen here come up with a better deal any time of the year when they go and present and demonstrate the product and bring out the finer things that we have in this car.
Finally, this comment from Ed Curley, the $100 a month for life winner of the 1957 Ford Selling Sweepstakes.
I think qualifying is one of the most important parts of presentation. My techniques vary with every customer, naturally. I imagine everyone's does.
If you're not convinced yet that it does pay off to present the product, ask the top man in your district or zone about it when you get the chance. 10 to 1, he'll agree with these other top salesmen and sales managers across the country. But now let's get some ideas on how to present the product. And we'll let our sweepstakes winner, Ed Curley, lead off.
I don't try to sell anyone unless I've thoroughly qualified them. Questions and answers. They'll talk. All you have to do is lead them into it. Now, you try to find out as much about him as you possibly can. If he likes baseball, you like baseball. And you talk baseball, as far as your knowledge will allow you to go. Or football, or hunting, or dogs, cows, or horses. I'm a farm boy. I know them all. By doing so, you have a much better chance to open him up and find out the product he wants.
Through the medium of tape recording, let's take a look at how they're doing it all across the country, starting with Detroit and another top salesman.
In getting a person to respect you and be interested in you, you've got to talk about things that they are interested in. That's as important, I think, as the presentation of the car itself. In presenting a good sales talk, I think about 1/3 of it should be talking about the automobile. 2/3 about their families and their kids. Things they're interested in are just as important as presenting a car. Spend sometimes 15, 20 minutes talking about things you know they're interested in. If you spend 15 minutes talking about their kids, their well-being, so forth, brother, you got them 2/3 sold.
Then there's this opinion from a sales manager down Dallas way.
The ones that do a good job, they do it right on the showroom floor. They go around and open doors and show them the upholstery and the carpets. Of course, they have the hood up and go over the engine with the customer, and particularly with the women. You bring up upholstery more than you would with the men. And we go into the trunk space and the door lock and safety features. There are just so many things we're superior over our competitors that it's not hard for a salesman to get out there and present the product if he knows it.
If he knows it. That's one thing each man interviewed mentioned, the importance of knowing the product, so that you as a salesman can start talking features on any part of the car that your customer seems interested in. To present the product, you must know the product. But what about the customer who claims to know the product, the type that wants to talk price only? How do you present the product to him? Here's how one successful salesman handles it.
Well, I'm convinced the public knows very little about the product. They might see a few ads, but they don't know the product by reading a couple of ads in a magazine or newspaper. Circumstance alters presentation. Now, if the customer is the type that comes in and says, I know all about the car, you got to settle him down by asking him questions that will lead him on. Maybe prove to him he doesn't know so much about it after all. Then, when he's doubtful, you can really present the product.
To start talking product, this Atlanta salesman does it this way.
Benefits. You talk benefits. Now, you have to tell them what that's going to do for them. You open the door, there's the upholstery. It only takes a minute to tell them what the upholstery is, that you can wash it when your kids dirty it, and it's long life. The rug on the Fairlane 500, when it's dirty, put a hose on it, scrub it, it won't shrink.
A Chicago sales manager uses this approach successfully.
A man walks in, he might... the way to find out, I think, what a man is interested in is leave him look at the product first. And from the questions he might start asking you, he'll give you the clue as to what primarily is his reason for wanting an automobile, whether it's a necessity or isn't it. 90% of them aren't necessity. Hell, if we only sold automobiles because it was necessary for the man to trade his car in, we'd be 1/10 what we are. They buy a car to keep up with the next-door neighbor, and you find out the next-door neighbor may have a custom. So, if he wants to be a little better than the next-door neighbor, you show him a Fairlane. Everybody wants to be a little better than the other guy. If he's a speed king, a performance man, for top performance, you feed him on the motor. Paint man, you tell him what our baked enamel's good for. how long it'll last. There's a lot of things. There's so many little things that a person buys an automobile for, it takes a hell of a lot of digging to really find out why he buys it.
Yes, it does take a hell of a lot of digging. But there's more than one way to mine gold. And most successful salesmen love their own favorite way. A top West Coast salesman presents the product by giving his customer a reason for buying, by asking,
"Are you buying this car as an anniversary present for your wife, Mr. Reynolds? Do you have something like that in mind?" And the guy usually says, "That's right, we do have one coming up." From there I say, "Won't your wife be happy if you come home tonight and say, 'Look, honey, here's our anniversary present. It's a little bit ahead of time, but I couldn't resist this deal.' Get them thinking on terms of that. Or a birthday, or a Christmas present. Man, what a Christmas present."
An Iowa salesman says,
One salesman I know asked the prospect to get in the front seat of the car. Then he closes the door, stays outside the car, and talks features to the man while he's behind the wheel.
Now, how do you sell product when your customer starts comparing price right away? Again, let's ask sweepstakes winner Ed Curley.
If he's picked out a car, you got to get right down to it and pit our car against competition. Prove to him that we've got more to offer per dollar than they do, which we have. Now, all you have to know is what other car he's interested in, what price you're against. If it's a Chevrolet, go into it from one end to the other. Put component against component. Prove it to him what we have. Now, forget the price. Let's get the product into it first. Now, let's take that Chevrolet buyer. I'll take him by the hand and put him in the car. I drive around and try to find a Chevrolet, and when I do, I park my car right alongside of it. Let him compare it, one alongside the other. Then I don't think there's any problem at all.
Then we asked one of the sweepstakes district winners of a retractable hardtop how he handles the price shopper.
I feel that if you talk product with them, you can gain their confidence much better when it comes to price. With price buyers, I avoid talking about the price. I go into something they like first, sports or whatever it is they like, just to take up time. It isn't easy to find out what they like, their hobbies, but first of all, I speak of like the ball games. And if he doesn't like that, I speak about the fights. And if he doesn't like fights, I go into basketball games. Or if he wants to talk about his home life, I'll talk about that. I just keep talking until I find a common ground. Anything but talk about price. I find if I do that. And then whatever price I give them, they'll accept it. They're more likely to. If it's an elderly couple, they like for you to be married. They like you to take it easy with them and talk about their home and that they don't go out very often. And I tell them I do the very same thing. I say I sit home with my family, and another thing, if it's a young kid, they'll talk about speed. And if I can talk about speed with them, well, they enjoy that. Many times with a young kid, I have to talk on both sides. Talk with the parents a while and then go talk with the kid. It doesn't matter, though, whether they're old or young or middle-aged. They're easy to deal with if you'll talk their language.
Talk their language. That's one suggestion. Here are other suggestions on handling shoppers.
The key to the whole thing is to stay off the price. Go with the customer until you're ready to have him follow you. Then switch him to the car you want to sell him.
A salesman from Florida has this to say.
I believe, Jack, that to get top dollar and to make the sale, you've got to get it over to the customer that you have the better product for the price. That Ford is the best buy. You're far ahead if you sell the product first and bring out the features of the automobile and so forth until you get the customer thinking your way. Then he's more interested in buying your product. He'll even pay more money if you can sell him on your product. Meet the price shopper head on. That's what I find works best.
This successful salesman finds that the best move with the price shopper is to meet him head on. Compare feature against feature. Show how each Ford feature is worth more. As a matter of fact, that's like The competition does it. In one large Midwestern city, we sent a researcher out to a Chevrolet dealership. He reported that after he told the Chevy salesman he'd seen the Ford and asked what the difference was between Ford and Chevy, the salesman said, "Well, listen for yourself." Here's what he reported.
We're selling quality. I can show you $300 more quality in Chevrolet against a comparable Ford. In quality alone, I can show it to you. You've seen the Ford. Now let's take this car right here. Take a look at the chrome we use. Remember what you saw on the Ford? You see, they've got to beat our price. And the only way they can do it is to take something away from the car. This chrome is a heavy chrome. Never chip, rust, flake, or tarnish. If it starts to rust on you, bring it in and the whole bumper is replaced for you. Now that chrome is worth an additional $40.
And so it went, with the Chevrolet salesman going right around the car, pointing out item after item that he said was worth more, and writing each down on a pad. Solid steel post, $30. Glove box light, $5. Power glide transmission, $100. Front air vent, $60. Finally, after he had written up the $300 worth, he wound up on this note.
Sure, just take a look at the other two cars. A lot of difference. There it is. I've pointed it all out to you. It's a lot of automobile. It's wider and it's a little longer. 2 inches lower and well balanced. Plenty of headspace and, believe it or not, 2.5 inches longer. You see, you can see $300 worth of extra features there. $300 worth.
A sales talk based on quality and features. And this is only one report. In all our shopping competition, one pattern emerged. Quality and features, repeated over and over again. Bear this in mind when you give your side of the story, the Ford side. But now, let's look at still another problem involved in handling the shopper. What about the prospect who's been shopping other Ford dealers? Many salesmen consider this their biggest problem: how to successfully combat cross-selling. Well, let's go to the source. Let's listen to how one successful Midwestern salesman handles Ford shoppers.
Well, of course, naturally, we rely heavily in service. We tell them, and that's the truth, that we do the second largest service volume in the city. We render good service. We show them where it's worth a lot to them to get good service. We show them at the end of 12 months, if they have to make a trip across the city for all the things that they have coming, that a dealer should be both helpful in supplying and also should feel that he should supply guaranteed parts and service at no cost to the customer. And quite often, well, that breaks down a barrier, if it isn't too great, in price.
Service. Sell service. That's this man's answer, an answer that runs through all our research. Listen to another successful salesman on the same subject.
In selling against another Ford dealer, we endeavor to impress the people with the facilities that we have here, the equipment that we have in the facility, and the service that we have to offer. We talk about the personnel of our service department, how long they've been with us, how well they've been doing with us, how happy they are, and that we have a lot more to offer here in the way of service than the average Ford dealer. We take them to our service department and let them meet our service manager and one of the service salesmen. Let them get the feel of the place before we even ask them to sign the order. We take them out and back purposely to show them some of our various models that are being prepared. We take them to the pre-delivery department. They see the way we have the covers off the motors. The felt cover is off, and in some cases even the wheels are off. Maybe the upholstery off the door or something. We impress them with the fact that we thoroughly condition these automobiles prior to delivery. So when they drive out of here with a new automobile, they have one that is prepared properly and conditioned for the road, so that the chances on coming back the following day or within the next week or 10 days until they reach their 1,000 miles is very remote. After all, in many cases, the prospective buyer before coming here may have visited some other Ford dealers that's never mentioned service or is ashamed to take them into the service department.
Here again, service is the primary argument used successfully to combat cross-selling. And service certainly seems to be a good answer. Now, let's consider our last point. getting from the presentation to the demonstration and close. In a later package, this will be covered in detail. Generally, however, most of the salesmen we talk to agree with what this successful salesman had to say.
Well, I tell them, I could talk to you all day about this Ford, but you couldn't really appreciate it till you drove it. Then, I just take them by the arm and gently lead them to the door. Most people go with you.
Remember one thing in considering the different techniques you've seen and heard about here today. A successful technique that works for one salesman will work for another, can very possibly work for you, if you take and use it in your own way. So don't be a hard-headed product knocker who scares his customers away.
With the deal I'm going to give you, friend, features won't matter.
Or a snub-nosed slide rule pusher who swamps his customers with irrelevant facts.
Then the thermal efficiency of this Framus is 0.95.
Or a penny-pinching price pitcher who thinks every prospect is out to rob him.
How much can you put down? What do you want? 24 or 30 months on the balance?
The point is, you've got a good product, the best. It can pay off for you as it does for so many others, in more sales and higher gross sales.
There's a lot of things. There's so many little things that a person buys an automobile for, it takes a hell of a lot of digging to really find out why he buys it.